In November 2017, shoppers in Istanbul pulled shirts off a Zara rack and found handwritten notes stitched into the seams. The notes read, "I made this item you are going to buy, but I didn't get paid for it." The factory that made them had vanished overnight, a year earlier, owing more than 140 workers 3 months of wages. The company that sold those shirts is now worth over $130 billion. If that interests you, subscribe, because this channel covers what most people slept through. The story starts in 1963 in A Coruña, on the northwest coast of Spain. A 27-year-old former delivery boy named Amancio Ortega started a small company making bathrobes. He called it Confecciones Goa. 12 years later, in 1975, he opened a single clothing store nearby. He named it Zara. The idea was simple. Copy the look of expensive fashion, use cheaper materials, and get it on the shelf before the trend passed. By 1985, Ortega had folded the growing chain into a holding company. Inditex, short for Industria de Diseño Textil, textile design industry. By 2008, Inditex was the largest fashion retailer on earth, running roughly 4,000 stores in 70 countries. Today, the figures are documented in the company's own financial filings. For the fiscal year ending January 2025, Inditex reported revenue of 38.6 billion euros, about $42 billion. Net profit came in near 5.9 billion euros. The group runs 5,563 stores and employs over 162,000 people worldwide. Ortega, who stepped down as chairman in 2011, has a net worth Forbes placed above $100 billion in 2024. He still owns roughly 59% of the company. This is the scale of what one 2-week idea built. Here is the mechanism most customers never see. Traditional clothing retailers design a season 6 to 12 months ahead, place one massive order with a factory overseas, and wait. If the trend shifts before the ship arrives, the goods get marked down. Zara built the opposite system. Inditex directly controls design, a slice of manufacturing, and all distribution, a structure known as vertical integration, meaning the company owns most of the chain instead of hiring outside firms for each step. Roughly half its production happens close to home: Spain, Portugal, Morocco, and Turkey, near enough that a truck, not a container ship, can make the delivery. Every finished order flows through a single automated hub in Arteixo, Spain, nicknamed the Tube, which sorts and ships to stores twice a week. The result, confirmed in Harvard Business School case studies and Inditex's own reporting. A design can move from sketch to store shelf in as little as 2 to 3 weeks, against an industry norm measured in months. But speed alone isn't the weapon. The real mechanism is scarcity. Zara deliberately manufactures small batches, often just a few thousand units of any single design, and rarely restocks a sold-out item. Store managers get limited stock on purpose. Customers who see something they like learn fast. Buy it now, or it's gone. That single decision reshapes shopping behavior. Zara shoppers visit stores an average of 17 times a year, compared to 3 or 4 times for a typical retailer. Because Zara sells almost everything near full price, markdowns run near 10 to 15% of stock, against 30 to 50% industry-wide. And because scarcity does the marketing, Zara spends close to 0.3% of revenue on advertising. H&M spends roughly 4%. Nike spends around 10%. Speed created the supply. Scarcity created the demand. Together, they built a machine that barely needs to advertise itself. To the public, this system was told as an innovation story. Business schools praised it. Magazines called Ortega a genius of logistics. The company's own message was one of democratized fashion. Runway looks, affordable prices, available to anyone within weeks of a catwalk show. What that story left out was what happens at the edge of the supply chain, where the pressure for speed lands hardest. Zara doesn't own every factory that makes its clothes. It contracts out to independent suppliers, and it demands the same turnaround the whole system runs on. In July 2016, a Turkish supplier called Bravo Textil, which made roughly 75% of its output for Zara, shut its doors overnight. It left 140 workers unpaid, about 650,000 euros in owed wages and severance. For over a year, nothing happened. Then, in November 2017, those same workers walked into Zara stores in Istanbul and began sewing their protests directly into the clothing on the racks. Only after the notes made international news did Inditex agree to set up a hardship fund. And even then, workers and labor groups disputed who would actually get paid, arguing the company drew an arbitrary line between office staff and factory floor workers. The gap between the innovation story and the Bravo Textile case is the gap this documentary is built around. The consequences reach further than one factory. In Brazil, labor inspectors in 2011 found immigrant workers, including a 14-year-old child, in São Paulo workshops producing Zara garments in what officials classified as conditions analogous to slavery, Brazil's legal term for modern forced labor. Inditex responded not by overhauling its Brazilian supply chain, but by filing a lawsuit challenging the constitutionality of the government's public dirty list of offending employers, a move that got the company suspended from Brazil's National Pact for the Eradication of Slave Labor in 2012. In 2013, Argentine authorities uncovered Bolivian workers, some of them minors, in clandestine workshops producing Zara-labeled clothing under 13-hour days. In 2023, Bangladesh's garment sector, which supplies Zara alongside H&M and Levi's, erupted into the deadliest wage protests in the industry's recent history. 4 workers died in clashes with police during a national minimum wage dispute. In the aftermath, factory owners supplying major Western brands filed criminal complaints naming tens of thousands of workers. Global labor groups sent formal appeals to dozens of brands, Zara among them, asking them to press their suppliers to drop the charges. Meanwhile, investigators had separately traced hundreds of thousands of tons of cotton in Zara's supply chain to Brazilian farms operating in the Cerrado Savannah with documented environmental violations. None of this shows up in the revenue figures. Inditex's net margin, near 15%, sits well above the 5 to 7% considered strong in retail. The speed that built the business and the human cost behind it were never separate systems. They were the same system. This is the reason a $12 shirt can exist on a shelf 3 weeks after someone sketched it. The industry Zara built has now been outpaced by faster, cheaper rivals. Shine moves even quicker, with even less visibility into how. Regulators in the European Union are tightening supply chain due diligence laws, aiming to force companies to answer for factories they don't directly own. But the core mechanism hasn't changed. Speed is still the weapon. Scarcity is still the trigger. And somewhere down a subcontracted chain that stretches from Arteixo to Istanbul, to São Paulo to Dhaka, someone is still being asked to work faster than the system can be held accountable for. Most people slept through this. You didn't. Subscribe, because there's more.